Love it. I'm so glad you're here. What? Yes, I'm in the. How would I be doing a Google Meet if I'm not in the Google Meet?
Well, because you lost your internet, and when that happens, you can get.
Yeah, I lost internet a bunch of times because I kept on pressing the airplane button mode. Because okay, this is a really dumb thing. So when one of you guys conquers the universe and is ruler and grand poobah, you need to do me a favor and make sure that the full screen button is not the same as the airplane mode button, and that at least if it is, that one consistently works the other way. I had it working just fine where I could go press my F11 to full screen, and that's why I was like stuttering and like practically dropping off because it was a dumb. Anyways, let's look at the Incan government. So the local governors were responsible for extracting the mita, which is probably my favorite word that we get to say for our Inca unit, the mita, which is the labor tax. And it was simple. You exist in the Incan Empire. You owe the Sapa Inca work. All right? You exist, you work. Perfect solution. Now, some of that work might be making Amer build really big, heavy things. Some of that work might be Claire Bear going and farming. Some of that work might be Isha doing brain surgery, because yes, they could do brain surgery, the Inca. Can you believe that? That's amazing. I mean, it was trephination where like literally they're drilling holes in the head, but that does actually save people's lives sometimes if there's too much pressure. Yeah, pretty cool, huh? Now, the Koya is going to be important. She is the queen, and she is going to have a lot of religious duties, particularly if the Sapa Inca is out Sapa Inca-ing somewhere, like going visiting other parts of the empire. She was supposed to represent him and do many things. And the nobles are going to rule all of the different areas of the Incan Empire. Now, when I say rule the different areas of the Inca Empire, I do not want you to realize or to think that I'm just saying, oh, yes, they made laws and then people follow them. Oh, no, they're going to rule them. This is going to blow your minds, Kidderinos. It's pretty crazy right here. All right, so every aspect of your life was controlled. So, like, all right, I'm gonna let you guys in on a secret. Campbell is very stinky right now. I'm lying. She's not stinky. But pretending that you're not stinky, I promise. I just use you because you're the closest, and I was picking on you earlier, and it's fun. But pretending that Campbell is stinky. You see, the Sapa Inca or the nobles say, well, Campbell, your bath time is 6:15 to 6:20 on Tuesdays.
Oh, okay.
Your bath time was regulated by the government. When you had breakfast, lunch, and dinner, regulated by the government. How many hours you'd work. What time your bedtime was. Yes, did you know that you have a bedtime now, Campbell? From the government? Isn't that kind of wild?
What would happen if you didn't go to bed at the time?
Well, my next bullet said breaking laws often resulted in the death penalty. Now, do I honestly think that like Amer is going to knock at your door and say, are you tucked in? Because that's first off creepy. But secondly, probably not. But let's say you're out and about, not in your house. That might be the death penalty. So, yeah. So imagine that your whole life is controlled. And almost all of the crimes, it's, oh, Claire Bear didn't do her mita? Death penalty. You know? Oh, Anna isn't going and she is trying to bathe at times that's not her bath time? Death penalty. Wow. Crazy, right?
How would you know if they're taking a bath every week?
Look, all I know, man, is that they said when you're going to be able to do it. I don't know. I don't want to be the person to check. You're like, all right, lift up your arms. I don't think you bathed today.
What if, like, you can't sleep and it's their bedtime? Then
Stay in bed.
Okay.
You know, when I was in kindergarten, we had nap time,
Yes.
and I couldn't sleep on that cot with all those strange people.
I know.
I got in trouble every day. I stayed in the cot. I didn't make a noise. I got in trouble every day.
Oh, well,
Mrs. Romano, she never let me go into the prize box because I never went to sleep at nap time.
No. What I did was literally just a box of toys, and then I'd go into the cot and have toys, and then I'd lay down and I'd took those toys. And then I got in trouble like twice.
Yeah. So now, this is how the Inca wound up going and getting some of this control. The Inca would come in and conquer an area. And much like the Babylonians, the Assyrians, and other groups through history, they say, okay, I've got all of these people in here. So let's see, I'm going to move Saya over to this part of the empire. I'm going to move Mide to that part of the empire, Savona to that part of the empire, Sarah to this part, Madeline to that part. And they separated all the people and forced them to move. And the idea with that is you're going to be with people you don't know, people that may speak a different language or dialect than you, and therefore you're not going to be able to work together to rebel. They did forced resettlement. They completely moved people and their whole lives around so that they couldn't band together to fight against the Inca. So we see the Inca were not necessarily the most beloved of rulers, much like how we saw with the Aztecs weren't particularly beloved. Now, what is really cool, of course, is the quipus, which we've talked about, how you have knots and strings and how, like, literally, Emmy would look at this just collection of knots and be like, oh, okay, so we had 40 bushels of corn here. We have 53 llamas being sheared over here. Last year, Sarah won the Olympic gold medal here. Like, it's amazing how they kept all of these records, and people who knew how to read them knew what every single knot would mean. Pretty incredible. One of the things that the Inca created, and I think this is where I have the 12,500 in my head, because I promise you 12,500 is a number we will see with the Inca. I guarantee it. I was not just making that up out of my butt. I think that's the number of how many miles of roads that they had throughout the entire empire. I'm pretty sure. Or is that the royal road for the Persians? I swear 12,500 is a number, and it has to do with some roads or something. If it's 12,600, I will karate chop you. All right. Now, the thing is, in our country, we have all of these roads, and, Madeline can go visit grandma. Celine can go drive to the hospital because she said she had a heart attack with her balloon popping. We could use those. For the Inca, only the military and government could use the roads, meaning Sapa Inca could use the roads, the army could use the roads, but you better have explicit permission if you are not one of those people. You weren't using that for regular people travel. Another thing, everything belonged to Sapa Inca. That pencil Simon has on his notebook, and the notebook, and the Chromebook, and the water bottle, that mask on his face, the Gap sweatshirt he's wearing, Sapa Incas. That screen you're looking at right now in there, yeah, Sapa Incas. That ridiculously cool arts and crafts room, which I'm totally jelly about and want to see all the amazing works of art in it, Sapa Incas. That kitty cat, Anna, Cosmo, yeah, Sapa Incas. Everything was Sapa Incas. The farming that Mamma Mia and Celeste and Facundo are doing, all of those crops are Sapa Incas. In fact, they will go collect all of the harvest and then go and give back to you what your family needs to eat. Now, from what this has here is we have absolutely no private property, absolutely no freedom. And they say, well, there's no crime because Madeline doesn't want to get executed for not going to bed at the right time. Amer doesn't want to get executed for not taking a bath at the right time. But we don't know for certain because the Inca were destroyed, and we have just what the Spanish wrote about it. Yes, Isha, darling.
Would you also be like Sapa Inca? So like, were you like whatever he said you had to do, or like if you were?
Yeah. Yeah, he had absolute power. I mean, and when you went before Sapa Inca, we talked about this a little bit with the Aztecs, the same idea. You don't look at Sapa Inca in the eye, like you lay prostrate on the ground. So like I normally would do it, but I don't want to get my pink shirt all dirty and stuff. It really would show up on here. And there's not that many of you to make it worth it for me to grovel on the ground in front of someone. And you guys would miss it. I'd have to like have like one of those selfie sticks. It just wouldn't work out. But yeah, like prostrate on the ground, chest on the ground, your head just up a couple inches. Good question, hon. And like we said, we have no written records because the Inca, despite their advancements, never developed writing. Never ever. And it's kind of amazing because, like I said, the Inca literally will do brain surgery. They'll do trephination. So if you get a really bad concussion, what can happen is there starts a building of a pressure in your head, and they still do this today. They will literally drill a little hole, and it will make it so your head like doesn't like go past thing and expand and kill you. And they could do that. They did all sorts of things that is just completely incredible and amazing. So it's wild what they could do, but yet they never developed a writing system. They had the Quipu. And I do hope that you guys are like shortening, getting the main ideas here, not writing 20,000 things. Simon's got it. Yeah. Well, then you got to shorten. You got to lessen it, broski. Never said that what the Mita was. Mita, it's the most fun word. You're fine, Campbell. Actually, she's not fine. If we were in the Incan times, she would probably have the death penalty happen to her.
Well, technically, if they vote for me, then I'm probably going to have this penalty. But
oh, yeah.
Vote for Campbell, then. No!
Vote for Campbell to be eaten by her teacher. All right, so here's a Quipu. Here we see. I mean, it just depends.
Please.
Economic development. So, for here, yes. Oh, take that, Emmeline McClatchy, even though you weren't saying that 12,500 mile road system. Whooping. I knew it was in there.
But she was talking about the population.
Yeah, no, she was talking about the actual length of the empire. I know, she was completely right, but I knew that 12,500 was somewhere in here.
I know, but
You're so gonna do that. All right, they had aqueducts. Here's one of the cool things. They had suspension bridges. So when we talked about yesterday, what are the challenges of going and living in the mountains? Well, one of them was the fact that there's a mountain over in Sarah's village between Claire's village. So what they do is they would build these crazy suspension, like those rope bridges, like, Indiana Jones, like every time there's a movie and like there's this raggedy bridge that like you definitely don't want to walk on because it's crossing a huge chasm. Yeah, they walked across them. In fact, they didn't just walk across them. They had a relay messenger system where people would literally run across these bridges. I'll show you a picture. I think the next slide, hopefully there's a picture. If not, I will go and Google one. But yeah, it's just incredible. Now, they did metal working, but they only used Stone Age tools. And honestly, with this, you probably don't have to write that kind of thing, but it's just an interesting thing. They didn't use any metal tools. What can I do to make it easier for you on there? Do I need to like stand like over here? Am I the problem, or is it like the screen there's the problem? Both. Okay, great.
Maybe if you unban it from the meat, then you can use it from the presentation.
I never banned him. Wait, what about?
You banned us, but you didn't ban a mayor.
He wasn't.
I don't have a problem.
He wasn't in.
You can decline. You don't have to see it.
Yeah.
And Harrison Point is Stratton.
Yes.
They actually had a whole fight planned after that scene.
I know. I actually, yeah, that's a pretty cool moment, and it was just all improv.
No, he was just not feeling too good, so he just didn't feel like
Yeah.
it.
Well, yeah, that's called improv. They're not doing what was in the script. Yeah, they also had anesthesia, and I want you to think about this for a moment. So anesthesia is something that, for example, if I were to be eating one of the students because I'm so hungry for lunch, like let's say Campbell, because she's been driving me crazy.
You probably will eat her. I think.
So what that does, anesthesia means you don't feel the pain. So, we just go and so it's completely numb. The United States of America did not use anesthesia during the Civil War. And that was 1860s when like literally Dr. Aya is sawing off Simon's leg because his bones were shattered because of the mini ball hit him. And no anesthesia. But here in South America, with Stone Age technology, they figured out anesthesia in the Incan Empire. So it's one of these things that it's just really cool how they developed and figured out things on their own. Most fraudulent, they grew a lot of corn, a lot of potatoes, coffee. You don't have to write any of that down, though. Then many woven baskets. The pan flute is an instrument, often the Peruvian pan flute, but you don't have to write those either.
I play reggae flute.
Yes, you do. I like the flute. Flute's a nice instrument.
Even though you always pick.
I mean, clarinet's better, but.
No, it's not. Flute's way better than clarinet.
Oh.
You also lied. You made your own fake Google search that says yes, clarinet is better than flute.
Well, it was the truth. All right, so they attacked a lot. I would probably say this is something where you can just shorten it, that they were always conquering and they forced people to pay tribute. I wouldn't write any more details than that. Always conquering, forcing people to pay tribute, like we already talked about before. As soon as they moved in, they would say, all right, you guys, you're moving here, you're moving there. And they would move new people in so that they couldn't unite. So constant military conquest. Trying to wrap this up a little bit quicker so that we're able to get on with working on the assignment so you don't have homework. Cuzco is the capital. You could just say Cuzco is the capital and had over 300,000 people in it, meaning it was one of the largest cities in the world. Once again, we see Tenochtitlan, Cuzco, these American cities are going to be significantly more densely populated than the European cities. And it's kind of crazy, though, because like we're going to see the Europeans and say, oh, they were more advanced because they had steel and they had guns and all of these things. But in other ways, they were less advanced. Lots of roads. What's really cool, so if you go to Cuzco today, so this picture is kind of showing that you have some of the original Incan stonework, like woven in completely with the stonework that we have for the or not the stonework, but for the masonry and the things that they did for the modern city. So this is original Incan stonework, and it's actually really cool. So the Incan stones, you can't see it very well here, but they're like perfectly fitted together, and like don't use like mortar or anything in between there. There's someone out the door somewhere. Okay, because you like just a couple of people are like staring like out the door. I was like, what's out there? All right. You know what? I think we're going to stop at this point, actually. Not as far as I had intended, but that is okay. So that is going to be our notes for the day. Do we have any questions or comments about what we have discussed